Farm4Profit podcast. Take a listen, have a blast. Farm4Profit podcast. Learn about farming while having a laugh. Farm4Profit podcast.
All right, Corey, let's kick off a Farm for Fun episode.
Bush. What do you got? Here we go. On today's Farm for Fun show, we virtually meet up with a duo that are big friends of ag. They are millennial females that started their own podcast just over 1 year ago, where they tackle food, current events, and other hot button topics in ag. If you put all of their followers together, they boast over 216,000 followers on all socials. Hailing from Nebraska and New Mexico, please welcome Natalie and Tara from the Discover Ag Podcast. Woo!
Right.
Woo!
Wow, that
What
was
is
quite
that?
an intro. I don't even know how to follow that up.
Oh, it's pretty easy.
You just talk.
Yeah.
Sorry you guys don't have any Bush Light to have, but we'll have one for you.
It's funny that all we have to do is talk. I feel like I need to be like body slamming someone or doing some sort of like high intense sport now, not just talking.
We could do that. So we're going to have another show with you down the road, and maybe we will do something
Do
with
some
that.
body slamming?
Yeah.
Is that what you...
It'll be like a wrestling ring or something. So, girls, I gave a very, very high-level intro. Let's start with Tara from my right to left on the screen. Give us a little background about your guys.
Yeah, so I'm Tara Vanderdussen, a dairy farmer from New Mexico. I grew up my entire life on a dairy farm in New Mexico, went away to college and got my degree in environmental science. Classic, like, small town kid, didn't think I was coming back to the farm. Ended up dating my husband, marrying him, and moving back to his family farm just down the road from my family farm. And about 7 years ago, I started sharing online, just kind of, I was seeing a lot of misinformation around dairy and the environment, and kind of wanted to come in with my perspective from, environmental consulting with dairy farms on what I was seeing. And, that ultimately led me down the path I'm on now, which was podcasting with Natalie on Discover Ag.
Perfect.
Oh, that is so cool. Yes, I can't wait to get into the question part of this.
Yes.
Go ahead, Natalie.
Like Tara, I also grew up in agriculture. I hail from the beautiful state of Montana. I grew up on a cattle ranch up there. It is a running joke that my husband came to our annual bull sale and he came for a bull and left with a wife. So when I met him, I got whisked away to the Sandhills of Nebraska, which is where we ranch now. We have a cow calf operation. It's kind of the heart of what we do, but my husband is pretty passionate about genetics. And so we're also growing our own registered Angus herd. And like Tara mentioned, I started sharing online, a few years ago, as some of us did. We like to open up our life for some reason. And I'm glad I did. It brought a lot of really wonderful opportunities into my life, one of which, as Tara said, was doing Discover Ag, the podcast with her.
So how did you two meet?
I feel like that's always the question we get because Nebraska and New Mexico are not close together.
No.
We met online. It was kind of like in the early days, I feel like, of people kind of sharing on social media. And so there wasn't a ton of us. And we kind of like formed a group where we could talk and share ideas and thoughts and just kind of collaborate on things on the internet and in the world of social media. And from there, our friendship just grew. We met in real life at one of Natalie's women retreats. And then it kind of like snowballed from there. Like in November of 2021, we got together for a conference, and like it just has been rapid fire ever since. I think we're pretty similar in our approach to our businesses and agriculture, and so it was just kind of one of those, I don't know. I would say love at first sight, but obviously that's reserved for my husband. So I guess like business at first sight, Natalie.
What our husbands would say is we are exhausting and we like to do things at a very fast pace. And so when we decided to go into business together, it's been a lot of fun. But like Tara said, it's been fast and furious.
I'm just trying to think, they said they met online. Is there a Tinder for business?
That's a great idea.
And then she said it was love at first sight. So I was thinking it had to have been like online podcast partner
100
dating.
acres, 1,000 acres, swipe left, swipe right.
Yeah.
That is a niche audience if we have ever gotten into like a niche one.
Owns microphones, does not own microphones, has 4K camera.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, man.
I will tell you that I would probably bet that a lot of listeners enjoy listening to the soothing sound of both of your voices. You are are very calm, radio-esque podcast voices.
Yes,
That
very
is a compliment I never knew I wanted to hear, but thank you so much for saying that. I don't know how you guys feel about listening to your own voice, but I don't know if anyone enjoys it. So I will add that to my resume. Thank you.
There you go. Tanner had to work on his radio voice for a while.
I did, yep.
It's pretty squeaky.
This is not what I, 5 years ago, this is not what I sounded like.
I feel like now's the time someone could drop a radio face joke, though.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It has to be.
We screwed that
Has to
up when we started video recording, yes.
Yeah. Dang YouTube.
But isn't that true? How many of your listeners are surprised at what you look like? Well, I guess you guys do a lot on Instagram, but there for the longest time, people didn't really know what we looked like. But, just like a radio host, you just don't ever meet them. So you put that image in your brain, and then you get surprised.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I will say we obviously will share on social, but recently we've had people coming to our podcast that don't follow us on social and that are only podcast listeners. And it is funny when they come over to Instagram and are like kind of like meeting us for the first time. We actually went to a podcasting conference this weekend, and even seeing other podcasters in real life talking, Natalie was like, it's so weird to see them while they're talking. Like it's just a weird thing when you're used to listening to someone in your earbuds on your radio to actually have like a visual component.
It reminds me of the DVD player we've got in my wife's car. I've watched so many kids' movies without actually seeing them that when I actually see them, I'm like, well, that is not what that character looked like in my mind. The animation, the graphics is not on par.
So most people that podcast actually kind of do it themselves, and we were one of the first that I knew that were a team podcast, and now you guys are a team podcast. How's that melded throughout the time of doing it so far?
Really good. I could not imagine solo podcasting. In fact, I do not think I would solo podcast. I think that's kudos to the people that do. It seems very, very intimidating. I think Tara and I recognized really quickly that we both are similar enough, but different enough too. And so we love to play off of each other's strengths and recognize each other's weaknesses. And I think we do that the same thing with podcasting. And so it's played out really, really well. Tara's really good and quick on her feet. And she, narrates and drives the conversations for our podcast really, really well. And I can kind of just like follow along and add my 2 bits. And so it's worked out really well being like a duo in the podcasting space for us, I think.
I think Natalie really undersold what she brings to the podcast in that segment. But yeah, Natalie, I feel like is the one that comes in with like the pages of notes and like the facts. And I'm just like there for the comedic relief of following the facts there.
Yeah, see, I just do it all for us.
Yeah, I was going to say, both of you are Tanner. We're just sitting here and just color commentary.
See, that was supposed to be a joke, not actually factual. That's cool though, because it's tough. I mean, we got lucky, honestly, with the 3 of us, because we have very unique skill sets, and we 4 years into this still enjoy, at least on the surface. Nobody's mad while we record. Might tell our wives something different.
Yeah.
But how long have you guys been podcasting? Since April? So your approach, you just completed 2 years.
Listen to my intro or
first year?
First year, yeah. And I would actually say that we kind of got lucky too, because our original idea to come together for business was not podcasting. So that is not where we actually started working together. It is something we kind of just serendipitously fell into. And then when we were in the middle of it, we realized how much we enjoyed it and kind of decided, mutually decided that that's where we wanted to focus more of our energy and time and really your social media energy into was the podcasting space. And so it's not like we came together, I guess, to do the podcast. It kind of was born of just other things we were doing.
What were those things? What was the drive?
So originally, when we started our business back in November of 2021, we were building an online course called Elevate Ag. And essentially, we both were sharing on social media, and we were getting a ton of questions from other farmers, ranchers, producers about like how to start sharing, how to start monetizing online, like how to work with brands. And so we created an online course that would kind of take you step by step through the process of like online videos of how to do that, how we've done that, how to grow your audience, all of those kind of things. And so actually, the premise of our podcast at the beginning was kind of helping people through that course and giving more tools and resources. And back in about, I guess it was probably late summer, early fall, we just realized we wanted to kind of go back to our roots of why we started sharing online in the first place, of like sharing about agriculture and kind of keeping our pulse on like what was going on in ag and food space online in the news, and being able to bring that to people. So we kind of rebranded our entire podcast in November, and have been going forward ever since. But it's kind of funny, when we decided a podcast, Natalie said it was not our goal. We both like had called each other that day, and Natalie was like, I have something I want to say. And I was like, yeah, me too. She was like, I haven't even told Luke this yet. And I was like, yeah, I haven't told Daniel. And it was like both at the same time. We were like, we really want to start a podcast out of like all the other things we were doing. And yeah, as Natalie said, we like fell in love with it and now are just like full steam ahead. I'm sure you guys feel similarly. Like we love the podcasting space.
Very much.
Do you?
Yeah.
I wasn't going to say anything first.
No, I absolutely love the podcast space. I think it fits our niche or niche, however you want to say it, the best, because we're not good at TikTok dances.
Speaking of niche or niche, I'm gonna call Tara Tara because I grew up with a Tara in my class. So I apologize in advance if it comes out that way.
That's okay.
But
It's never happened before, I promise.
never right. Yes, exactly. That's cool though that you're able to provide insight to your audience on how to tell their story and then how do they put their story to work for them. And I think that's something we want to reserve for an episode down the road to really dive into some of the lessons that you teach. But have you seen it have a positive impact on the people that you've worked with? Can you shed a little bit light on what you're getting out of your audience?
From the podcasting space or from the course space? Sorry.
From the course. Yep.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that's one thing I didn't quite, I think I undersold it to myself a little bit going into it, was how much I would enjoy hearing, seeing, and being a part of what the people who take our course, our students, accomplish. And so the feedback is really, really rewarding. I'll never forget, we had a direct-to-consumer girl that was a part of the course, woman, female, and she messaged in that they were going to have to, disperse or sell because they weren't moving the product, and through our course they were able to. And so she was just so appreciative of what we were able to teach and implement. And so, there's a handful of things we could share like that, but it's just really cool. I think there are people who, there's really a spectrum. There are people who get in to kind of advocate and have just a better understanding. They aren't looking to do anything, quote unquote, like huge or big, build a business or like really scale, or they just want to, be online sharing about agriculture. And so we'll have people like that. And then we'll have people on the opposite end of the spectrum that are like really have a business or really using social media for, something bigger and really important to their family. Maybe it's to bring back an income stream that they really, really needs, or to do something for their operation that they really, really need. And so it's really fun to be a part of like the spectrum and the results, the entire way through.
Yeah, for me, I started sharing online as just wanting to kind of, like I said, advocate, like just share about agriculture, open up my life. But I quickly realized how much time it would take. And so, being able to turn that into a business has been incredibly valuable to my family, to accelerating my career. Like there's really power in social media, like all the good and bad in it. There is some really cool things you can do when you're able to build like either a brand or a personal brand on social media.
Tanner, maybe they have a course on how to monetize a podcast. Is that in there? We could.
Yeah, little did they know, this is the end of the interview, and the rest of this is a
all right,
consultation.
the rest of the
We're going into a Q&A now.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna stop the recording, listeners. Thanks for sticking out with us this week. Next episode will be a little bit longer.
So what's your audience? Is it you're both females? Is it female specific agriculture? Is it anybody agriculture, or who's the audience we want to hit?
Our very first sign up was actually a male who wanted to advocate and kind of start a business through there. So, I think there is more females, but it is definitely a broad spectrum. Sorry, Natalie, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say the same thing. I think it is female majority, but we didn't create it to appeal to one gender or the other. I think there's just more women in agriculture sharing maybe than men in agriculture. I don't know. I think now it's gotten more popular, I guess, for maybe both. But I just feel like the women have really I guess drawn to like the storytelling aspect and really kind of like showcasing agriculture. I think it's been pretty powerful helpful for a lot of females, maybe to express themselves or their, what they have experienced through agriculture and kind of their ag story, I guess is what you could call it. And so I think women are just kind of maybe more drawn to doing that and monetizing it. But yeah, we have both males and females in the course.
Are you attempting to reach people outside of ag?
So with our podcast, we are, but not with the course. In the course, like we do teach you the tools of if you want to reach an audience outside of ag, how to do that. But our podcast, I would say, is very much focused on just people interested in the food system, how their food is grown, how it's produced, that kind of thing.
Yeah, the Elevate Ag, I guess, which is the online course and like Facebook community, is what we call like our producer facing side of our business. It's really meant like if you're either involved in agriculture some way, or maybe you're not, maybe you're just like passionate about agriculture, maybe you're in like an allied industry and you want to kind of share and use the tools. I mean, a lot of what you can teach in there could be extrapolated and applied to really any industry. We do use like terminology, like when we're talking throughout our videos, referencing agriculture. A lot of our examples are agriculture. And so maybe that's why we feel like it's more producer driven. And then like Tara said, Discover Ag, which is our podcast, is more of like our consumer facing side.
Got it.
So if we've got listeners of our podcast that enjoy podcasting in general, why should they go listen to you guys? What would be something for them to look forward to?
Yeah, so the basis of our podcast is every week we cover 3 news articles that are trending in the ag and food space. So, we've covered everything from, Bill Gates and China owning farmland to water rights issues in Arizona to, different food things that are going on. Like it's a very vast array, but it's kind of just what's in the news right now and what people are having questions about. And actually, a lot of our articles come to us from our listeners. And when we see the same article just like repeatedly being sent to us, it's like clearly people are having questions about this. The fire in Texas that happened at the dairy farm, that was one of our most sent in ones, like, please cover this. And so we just try to tap into what are people wanting to know about, what's going on, what's kind of trendy right now. And then bringing people kind of our perspective, our professional perspective as a farmer and rancher and as professionals in the ag space.
What Tara left out is people should come listen to us because we're freaking awesome and a lot of fun. Period.
And it sounds good.
Yeah.
I like that. Do you is there ever a week that there is no news?
No, it's usually like we actually have so many articles that what we've started doing is if we can't get to an article that week, we share it to our Instagram, our Discover Ag Instagram page. That way we can cover even more. But I feel like every week it's like pretty hard to get it down to just 3 articles because of how much is constantly happening.
That would be hard.
She's going to have to go to doing it daily.
Yeah.
It would be like
ag news
daily
news
on a daily basis.
Yeah, but that'd be better.
It would be no, you get what I'm hinting at.
Yeah.
I think we're pretty comfortable on Thursdays. Thursdays are for discovering, and I think that's the way we'll keep it.
I think you guys have extra. You could do a Patreon type deal, and if you want the inside scoop, then you could pay me a little bit more and get our other articles.
It's funny you mention that. We have been talking about that. It's funny. I always, even in our course, I talk about how like clarity comes through action. And I think that's can be applied to all aspects of life, but you don't really start recognizing things until you're like in the middle of it. Right. And that's when you recognize like opportunities or ideas present themselves, is like when you are, actively moving through your business or your personal life. And I guess through the pod, when we rebranded, we just kind of envisioned doing these Thursday episodes that were, again, like Tara said, the top, 3 trending topics or news articles in the news or online that week. But we've also now we're recognizing that maybe we're missing a little bit of like our personal, like us a little bit, because each Thursday episode is so focused on the news. We intro with like a little bit about what we did that week and kind of catch up with our listeners, but then we really move into the news, and then once we're done with the news, it's kind of over. And so we've talked about like maybe doing like a once a month where it's like just us taking maybe Q&As or like focusing back on more personal stuff that's not what we're covering on Thursdays. And whether that's for everyone or behind a Patreon, we haven't decided, but I think it's maybe something we're going to kind of dip our toes into.
It's fun to explore what's next when you have an audience. I mean, you don't want to take an audience for granted, but like we've said over and over again, the more successful we became was when we started listening to what the audience wanted to hear. So that the guests that they suggest, the topics they wanted to hear about, when you start paying attention to what they're asking for, it just makes it more fun.
I
'cause
thought
you
it was
get
when
way
we
more
started
engagement.
drinking beer and then just talking about random stuff.
Well,
That started it.
that's what they wanted.
That's
That's what
exactly
they wanted. That's what they wanted. You are correct.
Well, we usually get about this far into an episode and we try to break it up because I want to dive back into more of each of the operations that you two are a part of and get some more of that baseline information for the two of you. But let's break it up with a game.
As you break it up, I'm taking off.
You're to take your time. We got soccer
So-
practice.
Yep. Ladies, it was very nice to meet you. I got a few questions I've wrote down for these guys here to ask you.
We'll
Thank
see you in August.
Yeah,
Yes.
see you then.
See ya.
All right, ladies. Have you ever played Do, Marry, Kill or MASH or whichever it is? So we got told that was too harsh by our listeners. We listened to our listeners.
Yep.
So we went to calling it Start, Bench, Cut. So if you
Okay.
think of it as a sports analogy, who's your starter? What's your number one go-to? Who do you not want to throw away? You want to keep them on the bench, and who's off the team? So the first one's food related. Breakfast, lunch, dinner.
Ooh.
Start, bench, cut.
I will start breakfast. I will cut lunch, and I will bench dinner.
Okay. What's your favorite breakfast?
I am kind of a creature of habit, and I do eggs and animal protein pretty much every single morning.
Hey, that's good breakfast.
Hmm
Tara?
Okay, I'm going to be a little bit, I wasn't sure which way I was going to go, but I'll flip flop from Natalie. I will start dinner, I will bench breakfast, and I will cut lunch.
Really? Dave, would you do the same? Everybody's cutting lunch.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'd cut breakfast. Like if I had to miss one, that's the one I miss. But lunch and dinner, definitely need dinner.
I get to like 10:30, 11 o'clock in the morning, and I need something. So I don't think I could cut lunch.
Yeah, I don't know.
I would either cut dinner or breakfast, but maybe my cut dinners because it seems like I get so home late
late.
anyway that dinner's out
Dinner's
the door.
done. Yep. All right, I got the one that's going to be a trumper here. Start, bench, cut. YouTube, TikTok, or Facebook?
We should have
No,
done
that's easy. I'll go first. Okay, so cut YouTube. Sorry, YouTube. I don't understand you. I don't like you. Don't get why people use you. I will start Facebook. My husband has joined me on the Facebook platform and we share over there, and I actually just really enjoy sharing with him and him being a part of that. And I will bench TikTok because I like to just scroll TikTok. Like I don't post it all. I just like to be able to be over there. So that's my bencher.
Well, you guys didn't give me my MVP, which is Instagram, Twitter. So you're really putting me in a tight Hail Mary situation here. I will cut Facebook. I have not been on Facebook since college when you needed a college email to actually log into Facebook. So I see no need to give them a jersey again. So Facebook's gone. I will, I guess, start TikTok and bench YouTube.
Okay.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I hadn't been really focusing on Facebook much lately, and our audience is growing rapidly on Facebook. It's kind of interesting that platform, but I would start TikTok. And I don't spend a lot of time on YouTube. I could probably cut it. I just don't. I've spent more time over there since we've been putting our content out, but up until then, no, not necessarily.
See, and I spend the least amount of time on YouTube as a consumer. As a business, YouTube would be my start.
Yeah.
Because I think YouTube monetizes the best out of any of those.
Oh, but maybe we'll learn from these ladies.
So,
Oh,
Google,
look at that. They both smiled. Really,
Google owns YouTube and Google owns the landscape. So if as a business guy, I'd start there. But Facebook is my number one too. But and then TikTok's in the middle.
All right, ready for another one?
Yep, let's go.
Loving this.
Tequila, vodka, wine.
So I am actually not a big drinker. So I could cut all of them and just survive just fine. But if I do order a drink, it is definitely vodka based. So I'm going to start vodka. And then I guess I would bench wine and definitely cut tequila.
Ooh, definitely cut tequila.
Yep.
I went
All
out
right.
to
Sometimes I
dinner.
accidentally order drinks with tequila, and it's fine, but I'm just not. But you could give me a list of like alcohol names, and I would not be able to actually sort them into like whiskey, tequila, vodka. Like I would fail that test
Yep.
horrifically. And so I'll
Um,
accidentally order lots of different drinks, and I'll still drink them, but it's not the best experience.
Right.
Natalie and I went to dinner on Saturday night, and she ordered a Shirley Temple. If that tells you her level of drinking sophistication.
Grenadine all the way.
The waiter was a little thrown. He brought it, but he said it twice, and I was like, I did not stutter. It was a Shirley Temple.
He like tried. He was like, "You mean like a drink that's kind of like a Shirley Temple?" And
Yeah, he's like, do you want a
"No."
mocktail? And I was like, no, I want a Shirley Temple.
That's really funny.
Okay, I am going to start wine, bench tequila, and cut vodka. And I'm just sad that you didn't mention whiskey because that would have been my starter.
No, that was on purpose because the follow-up question
Oh.
was your love for whiskey? Because right here in our show notes, it says that you're a whiskey drinker and a fast talker.
It is very true. That is in my bio. I love a good glass of whiskey. It's very problematic. It's like how I enjoy my evening is with a glass of whiskey. I love a good Crown and Coke. I'm just like a classic. I don't make it complicated. I just like a classic. And yes, fast talker. Natalie is also a fast talker. It's funny. Our podcast, people joke it's the one podcast you don't have to put on 1.25x speed because we are rapid fire talkers.
We are 1.25 or even 1.5 built in naturally.
Yeah.
Have either one of you thought about being auctioneers with your gift of fast talking?
No, but there was a reel or, like short form, like TikTok reel trend where you downloaded a script of words and saw how many you could read per minute. And I always wanted to try that and see how high I ranked because I think I'd probably knock it out of the park a little bit.
What do you think, Dave? Do you think they could be auctioneers?
I do.
We've got our own fast talker as well.
Yep. So I teach auction school. You guys should come out to Western College of Auctioneering.
I actually love that.
I grew up with John Goggins does our family bull sale, and so I think when I think about an auctioneer, I think of him and not me. And I definitely don't think I could keep up with the Goggins repertoire. So I think I'll stick to podcasting.
Just think of how surprised they'd be if after 2 years of practicing, you just grabbed a mic and
Went.
yeah.
Yeah, it'd be a shock. It'd be a sale day surprise for anyone attending.
Everything cigar smoking, tobacco chewing, cowboy, male dominated. The largest demographic joining the auction industry is young females. So
That's actually cool.
so
I've never thought about it, but I bet it really was a male dominated industry, and it's super cool to see women kind of bleeding into that now then.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So before we dive back into each one of your operations, if you were an animal, what would you be?
Do you have your answer, Natalie? Or do you need a minute?
I need a minute.
Okay, I'll go first. I would definitely be a dolphin.
That is not it. Is that what you?
Obviously, you guys. Obviously, Tara would be a dolphin.
I love dolphins. I feel like my children are very obsessed with mermaids. I'm like, I can't believe I'm saying this on a podcast. So I just feel like I feel like a dolphin. It's like the closest thing to like a mermaid. You're just out there hanging out. You're enjoying
Mexico
the ocean.
doesn't touch any oceans, does it?
No, it definitely does
I don't
not.
think so.
Okay.
But that's what I would be.
That's cool.
I suppose I'd be a horse.
That's it? They're just a horse?
No why.
There's
No surprise there.
He's a
Well,
podcaster.
I was trying to
I'm gonna
figure
be a
out
horse.
what would match my personality as an animal, and I couldn't quite go there. So then I just went with my favorite animal, which I grew up riding horseback for fun. We didn't really use them for our ranch in Montana. We were flat enough that we just used like four-wheelers and motorbikes and trucks and stuff. And so they were never used for production. But here on our ranch, with me and my husband's ranch, we border the Nebraska Sandhills. And so there's definitely areas when we get out to summer pasture where I would not feel safe being on anything besides a horse. And so I spend a lot of time on horseback, and they are beautiful, wonderful creatures. I think that's actually my utopian moment, is like when I'm out at summer pasture on horseback.
I probably missed it earlier. We're in Montana.
I grew up in Southwest Montana, like outside of Bozeman.
Okay, fair enough.
Because what do you always tell me? You're from Haver?
Yep, have her. Like,
have
here's
her
a horse. Here's a horse. You can have her. Yep, that's exactly.
Yeah, you guys were class A or B?
B.
B. Yeah, so I think we would have met you guys at state, but I didn't play. I don't know if I ever actually played Haver.
Yeah.
Well, you wouldn't have met Dave. You wouldn't have met Dave at sport.
It's the ugly part of Montana. Yeah, she lived in like the nice part of Montana, like Yellowstone, the show. I lived in like the desert of Montana, the New Mexico of Montana.
Hey,
The Breaking Bad of Montana.
Yes, the Breaking Bad.
You said it, not me, Dave.
There you go.
Do they even download podcasts out there, or are we safe?
We're safe. We're very good.
Yeah, I'm gonna have all the Haver people coming for me now. The High Line.
The High Line.
Nice. Okay, so Tara, let's start with you. You said New Mexico, born and raised, and
Yep.
you went to school with your husband, correct?
I actually met my husband when I was 3 and he was 5. His family moved to New Mexico to dairy farm, and they dairy farmed just down the road from us. And I went away to college. We weren't dating. We weren't high school sweethearts at all. I went away to the University of Arizona, and we started dating my junior year of college. He was already graduated, and then I ended up moving back when we got married back to New Mexico.
So is New Mexico a big dairy state? Is that
It's
a
really
major
big,
industry?
actually. Yeah.
Okay.
We have the world's largest cheese plant in our town, just small flex to Wisconsin out there. But yeah, we are actually a really big, people don't know a lot about dairy in New Mexico, but Eastern New Mexico and West Texas, like if that was a state, I think we'd be one of the top 3. I mean, our county is in the top 10 dairy producing counties in the United States.
So what else does New Mexico have for agriculture? What's the other industry there?
Oh, I'd love to tell you about it. It's green chili. That's our big one. We're famous for our green chili. We have a variety. We can grow peanuts, potatoes. Down in southern New Mexico, it's pretty desert, pretty hot year round. There's a lot of vegetables, onions, lots of that kind of thing down there. And then then other support industries. So we obviously have a lot of things growing to feed cattle.
Do you like
And
green chilies?
cattle.
I do. I make these like awesome creamy chicken enchiladas.
Yeah.
They're fantastic, but I don't know how to make it for like one person. So it's like a batch of 20 is the only way I know how to make it. But it has 2 cans of green chilies in it and sour cream and cheese. And
See, Dave's our picky eater.
Just
So
goodness.
I was surprised that our picky eater liked green chili.
yeah, I like them.
Nice. So
They're
is
the
that
best.
is that mechanically harvested, or is that still harvested by hand?
Gosh, I get asked that. This is the second time I've been asked that, and I actually don't know. I've never harvested green chili, so I don't know how it's harvested. Great question. I'll have to come back to you. I'm sorry.
Discover Ag field trip.
Google.
You and
Yeah.
Natalie. Green chili tour.
That's actually a great idea. Natalie would die of the heat, though. She can't handle the heat in food, unfortunately.
She's shaking her head in agreement. I mean, it's in
I have
defiance.
a child's palate for spice. It is mild as can be.
That's a
We
Montana
were-
thing.
We were
Probably.
in Austin this weekend, and like the red, like basically ketchup that is slightly spicy. She was like, "Oh my gosh, this is so hot!" I was like, "This is his child's play."
I don't like fish because we never had anything fish based at all. So yeah, it's beef and potatoes. Like that's the game. And very
We'll
bland.
dine. We can dine, David, and it'll be great.
Yes, it'd be great. Yes, Shirley
You guys
Temples.
have your Shirley Temples.
Yeah.
Laura and I, we'll mix it. We'll mix a drink, and we'll eat our spicy food. Yeah, so we had a family get together yesterday for my niece's confirmation, and they had a taco bar, and they had made some fresh salsa and threw 8 jalapenos in this one, and this one had like 30 jalapenos, but he forgot that the size of the batch was in a different proportion. So the one with the 8 jalapenos was actually a hotter salsa by
Oh, really?
volume than the large batch that he made. Either way, it was still a jalapeno, which isn't, too high up on the hot scale, but everybody was complaining, especially the ketchup spicy people. Did not appreciate that one.
So you guys weren't harvesting chilies when you met. So how'd you meet your husband?
Yeah, so I mean, he's dairy. We grew up in the same town. Our families, when dairy started in the early 90s, kind of in New Mexico, really like rapidly expanding, there wasn't a ton of us. And so I feel like we hung out with everyone that was dairy. And dairy people are funny. We like all travel around together and, like my babysitter when I was a kid, her mom babysit my dad in California when they dairied. Like we just all follow each other around the country.
Did
So
you
our
show
families
dairy
knew
cattle
each
and-
other.
Did you show dairy cattle and have the white pants and the white, like the whole?
No, I did not. My dad was really big into 4-H. He was like president of his 4-H, but we didn't show dairy cattle at all. My dad pretty quickly realized he did not want to make his hobby work. So we were not encouraged to show dairy cattle.
I see. So I still didn't hear like when the light bulb came on, Tanner. All I heard was, yeah, he was around the area, so he was a default. That's what I went with. There was no special moment that I caught at all.
What I heard is they knew each other at 3 and 5,
So
and the
I
poor
guess-
man had to work for 20 years
I guess he's the guy.
to get her to say yes.
I know Natalie's story of her meeting her husband is much more interesting than mine. Mine was, I don't know. When we started dating, we knew right away within the first 2 weeks of dating. I was like, oh, I'm going to marry him. Like he's the one. But yes, he was my brother's best friend, my older brother's best friend, which I feel like is very like, off limits. You're not like supposed to date your brother's best friend. So it wasn't until I think that's probably why it was not till we were older that we actually started dating. And, yeah, it makes it fun for family trips, though. My brother and my husband love to go on family trips together.
I love that. That's good. So then your role on the farm today, so are you involved in the day-to-day, or is the business that you and Natalie have going preoccupy most of your time?
So up until I guess it's been about 2 years now. I actually worked for a third-party company that did environmental consulting for dairies throughout the state. So my dairy was one of my clients. All of my husband's family's dairy were my family's dairy, and then other dairies throughout New Mexico, Nevada, just the Southwest. And that's what I did full time. And then I kind of started transitioning, obviously, to sharing online. And then about 2 years ago, just the opportunities for sharing online outpaced what I was doing with being an environmental consultant. And now I kind of have the flexibility. I work for myself and I do both, which is great. I still do environmental consulting for my parents' dairy, as well as my husband and our dairy and our family's dairies. And then the occasional project here and there that I get kind of roped into. And so that's my focus has always been on the water rights, the environmental side, soil sampling, water quality, all of that kind of thing. I always joke it's like the back end of the dairy. I mean, I'm in the lagoon, I'm dealing with that kind of thing, and I don't mess with the cows at all.
Is anybody talking carbon credits in your area?
Oh, man. Yeah, everybody's talking, or I don't know about everybody, but yeah, carbon credits are definitely a big topic of conversation. We actually just installed 2 of our barns will be fully solar, hopefully any minute now. We're waiting, we're in the COVID waiting on parts situation. And then we hope to continue with carbon credits on, the manure management side in the future.
Nice. Really cool. Yeah. Well, Natalie, you've sat so patiently. Almost looked like you were enjoying it. Yeah. No, I thought she was enjoying that someone else was having to answer all the questions. But you're not going to get off that easy.
I was enjoying it. I'm out of the hot seat.
Oh, back in it. Ready? Here we go. Let's first start off because it sounds like you've got a good story as to how you and your husband met.
Yes. Well, I kind of alluded to it earlier, but he was actually up for our family bull sale. And so he came the summer prior, actually, and looked at kind of just different cattle throughout the area. Mm-hmm. And he met my dad then, and I actually never met him. And then both him and my dad were up at Holden's bull sale, and he had his eye on a bull that actually my dad outbid him on. So he came up afterwards to my dad, and I was kind of talking to him about maybe getting, some semen rights and just seeing what could work. And so then he decided to come to our bull sale after that. And so we met.
Did your dad say no? So the only way to get rights to the semen was to marry his daughter?
No, I think my dad would have preferred if I stayed in Montana. So he probably would have said, take all the rights you want as long as my daughter gets to stay here. So we met at the first sale, and then we always have an after party. And so we kind of were, talking and dancing, and he wanted to just, like maybe he didn't want to make it awkward. I don't know. But anyway, he did not ask for my number. He thought he would just look me up on Facebook, going back to,
Yeah.
bench cut start. His game was to just message me there and kind of start talking there. Well, I did not have Facebook. And so he had to wait a whole nother year, drive all the way back up to Montana for the next bull sale. And his friend came up to me that year and said, I cannot listen to Luke talk about a missed opportunity the whole drive back to Nebraska again. So he's going to ask you for your number this year. And even if you don't want to give it to him, please give it to him so that my drive back is more peaceful this year.
Oh, back in the day. Because that's actually how I first messaged my wife. Was I sent her a Facebook message?
Bull sales out in Montana are an event, though. Like when you're selling your annual production, I mean, like Kyle Shobes out there in Lewistown, Montana, and I mean, he'll be the entertainment afterwards and full dance band. I mean, it's a happening.
Yeah, I think my family just right at or right over their 60th annual production sale. So it's like Christmas, for our family. It's a really big time of the year. That's obviously a very stressful time of the year, but it's a really important day. And so you kind of, I can remember when I was little, my grandparents used to have, a party the night before the sale, even to welcome guests coming in. And then you have the production sale the next day, and then you'd have a party after the production sale. So I have so many memories, actually core memories of being at my grandparents and people coming and just knowing people for a really long time. Like obviously having some bull customers see me almost grow up, from like a little girl to, high school and even now.
So do you still go back for each sale?
That is so funny you asked that, Tanner, because my husband makes it back more than I do now. We have littles, and so the drive can be hard. And so, the last couple of years, he's made it up as a guy trip instead of me going to my family sale, which is a point of contention.
Yeah, you really hit a tough spot there.
Yeah, but no, we always have some sort of family present, whether it's my husband or I or both of us.
Speaking of littles, Dave.
Yeah.
Tad, Jax, and Rue.
Yeah, those are my boys.
What kick-ass names.
Yeah.
Those are all
Thank
way
you.
cooler than Tanner and David.
Is there a pattern to it though? Is it like first letter TJR or something?
No, Tad was very random. Jax is actually after my grandpa. My grandpa was Jack, and so we shortened that and made it Jax. And then Rue, my husband picked.
Nice teamwork.
My wife was cowgirl from Western Iowa, and everything had to be like a cowboy name, like Colton or Wyatt or something like that. And I was like, all right, we have too many. Yeah.
And see, for us, when we named our kids, I'm Tanner, and I only had Tanner. There was no short and no long. You didn't just call me Tan.
Yeah.
So my whole thing was with my daughters, Gabriella and Camille, is they all have options. If they grow up and they don't want to be Cammy, she can be Camille, or she could be Ella, or she would just every option available because I didn't get the choice.
Those are really beautiful names, Tanner.
Those are beautiful. I love that you said that about options. My husband is the opposite. My girl's names is Guinevere and Annalise, and he was like, they will not have nicknames. And obviously, my oldest is 9, and she has started to be called Gwen at school, and my husband hates it. He's like, her name is Guinevere. like, honey, it's gonna happen. Like, kids get nicknames. Like, that's just the way it is. And so it's funny that you actually liked that about the names, that there was options.
Oh yeah, because the other options when the kids get to choose your nickname for you can be way worse.
I'm trying to nickname my son, and he won't take it, but he is like in love with red. He's got red shoes, red pants, red shirt, like everywhere we go.
Just
if we
call
pick
him Red.
something out, so we've been calling him Red. Like, what's up, Red? And he's like, it's Caleb, Dad. It's Caleb. Like, what's up, Red? Like, and every time he won't embrace it quite yet, but even Mom
He won't until the cute girl at school
likes it. Yeah.
Yes.
But
That's
every
very true.
day he wears something red.
So now, as Natalie, you and your husband have built up the operation in Nebraska away from your family. Obviously, that was a part of his family's heritage. Who's all involved in the operation there?
So we're actually first generation. My husband grew up around agriculture. He is fifth generation through his mom. And so he was out, on his grandparents' ranch and farm from a very young age and knew that that's what he wanted to do from a very young age. I would say he has loved cows forever. But his mom worked in the medical field and his dad was an eye doctor. And so neither of them worked through, his mom's side of the operation. And so he grew up in town. It was, obviously close to where his mom grew up and the farm ranch out there. But no, his dad was an only child. And so his dad, where we live, kind of like the home base is where his dad grew up. We actually live in the house that his dad grew up in, is his grandparents' house. And so his dad inherited all of that, obviously, when his parents passed away. And his dad maintained a small little herd, on the side of, I guess always on the side through his occupation. But when Luke graduated is when he came back and really built the operation up.
Wow. I didn't expect that to be the answer. Gosh,
Yeah.
should have done better homework than that.
But it sounded like you had family, even though not family generational cattle operation, family generational land, though, of where you started.
Yes. Our home base again was inherited through Luke's dad. He got it, and so, but everything else, my husband really started out, and he'll tell that to young people in the operation who want to, or in the industry who want to get started. He started leasing a lot from area farmers and ranchers that wanted to, cut back or not spend as much time in. And so we have our own operation, our own land, but we still lease a lot of land too, just because that's pretty much how he got started, was leasing.
Yep, we just did a podcast on transitioning from generation to generation.
Mhm.
So it's interesting to hear how folks are doing that. We live in a college town in Ames, Iowa, and so with that, we're an ag school, and there's so many young folks that want to get into ag, and some have no tie at all to agriculture. So it's interesting to see what their plan is forward and how that works.
Yeah, it's neat too, going to these trade shows and setting up to record and getting to meet your listeners. That
Mhm.
how many of our listeners are young? I didn't expect that. I anticipated it being those that were either decision makers or transitioning into decision making. And there's so many of our listeners that are wanting to build up their knowledge base, build up their confidence to be able to begin contributing and show that they're worthy of making decisions. So they're trying to learn as much as they can through these shows.
So Natalie, are your kids into cattle as well?
Yeah, well, so Tad's a teenager, and I definitely think he will be involved in agriculture in some capacity. I don't see him getting, a job as a doctor or something, completely removed from the industry. But
Yep.
I'll be interested to see if he goes into production ag. I don't know quite yet if he will, come back to the ranch or even go back to maybe my parents' my sides of the ranch either. And so it'll be interesting to see, kind of his career path. I'm just right now, praying I can get him into college, keep him on the path to there. It's baby steps with the teenager. And so it'll be fun to see, what his future is. The two littles, Jax is going to be 5 soon, and then Rue is 2. And so obviously they are with us a ton. I still fill in sometimes as a pharmacist, but that was actually my education is pharmacy. And so when I was working off the ranch, they obviously went somewhere else. But now that I'm not, they're with us quite a bit. And so they definitely are exposed to it and enjoy it. But it's definitely too young to tell if they will,
We're
I guess be
struggling
as
with
obsessed
that
with
as
cattle
well.
as my husband.
Go ahead.
My wife is all into show cattle, and so she comes from a purebred Angus herd, and so she's just mom geeking out on showing cattle with the boys, and I don't know if they're into it as much as she thinks that they are, but yeah, they go out. So.
I just caught what you said, and I didn't realize that there were substitute pharmacists.
Yeah, I fill in. I mean, a few of the pharmacists in town are women, and so there's always a maternity leave that I need covering. And so, yeah, and then just vacations or whatever, they always know that they can call me and I can fill in.
She's like a part-time drug dealer. Not a full-time.
It's under the table. It's very casual.
Full-time podcast, though, is part-time drug dealer.
So do you have to keep up certifications? Do you have to do continuing ed, or how do you just get?
CE, and it's I'm actually kept up with my CE in Montana too, because that's what I was doing before I met my husband. I was a full-time pharmacist there, and so I am licensed in both states, and you just have to keep up with yearly CEs.
Wow. I don't know if I'd want to go pick up my drugs and be like, oh, you're just filling in for today?
So does your husband?
Did you get this right?
Like we have all kinds of drugs in our fridge because my wife's always playing vet.
Yeah.
So as we're doing
I'm glad
that,
you finished the sentence.
playing vet, yeah. and so it makes me wonder. Like her dad's just got a full separate fridge that's nothing but meds for the cattle. Does your husband add? Like I'd be asking all the time, like, hey, do you have a drug that would work here, just like in a larger dose?
No.
That's the right answer.
No, pharmacodynamic. Yeah.
She gave you the right answer. No.
No.
When Natalie became my business partner, she didn't realize that every other day I'd be like, wait, can I take this? How does this work? Can I take this with this? I don't know how many times I've called her in like a panic being like, is this allowed? Is this okay? She's like, I mean, I guess, or like, no, don't do that. So it's kind of nice having a pharmacist as a business partner.
So that's kind of cool because it's something you do outside of agriculture. What else do you do outside of agriculture? Like your listeners know you as an agriculture podcast. What's something we don't know about you?
Hold on. Let them think about that because I want to make a bad joke about
Okay.
drugs in the medicine fridge. So I grew up failed to finish hog farm, and when coronavirus broke,
Mm-hmm.
I swore there was a vaccine for it because I remembered reading the labels of the vaccines in the fridge in the shop about treating for coronavirus. And I swore that all I'd have to do is go out to the medicine fridge in the hog barn and I'd have my vaccine for that. So I don't think they cross from human to animal as easily as we think. But yes, now your answer to Dave's question.
Wait. I just got a text from my wife. We need to talk on your podcast how to change a 540 PTO to a 1000 PTO on the back of the tractor so I can mow the cattle pasture. There's something you guys need to put on, and I'll have my wife listen to it. So there you go. I'll wait till you get home, she says. All right. What do you have that is non-agriculture, like a yoga pants store or something crazy?
I feel
terrible
like
example.
my community, I do share pretty openly. And so I feel like my community probably does know a lot about me. But I do have a dream desire to attend culinary school. And so I could see me maybe doing that when all of my kids are out of the house, going somewhere like overseas even, and doing, a few months culinary school or
Man,
something.
you can be a chef at the Yellowstone Club.
Yes.
Big time tips.
Natalie and I always joke that I want to get my yoga certification. So she's going to go to culinary school. I'm going to go to yoga, like get my whatever 200-hour certification or whatever it's called. And that's what we're going to do. But my favorite, I feel like non-ag hobby is we have two. My family and I go up to a nearby lake. There's not a lot of water in New Mexico. So we take full advantage of the lake. And then we love to go to the sand dunes and go camping. We actually went to Glamis for the first time this year, which was obviously like the king of all sand dunes, and we love it. We love it a lot.
That's cool. Well, Dave, I've got 3 questions that Corey left us.
All right.
Before we close out. So
I still got one more.
You guys are almost off the hook. We got you on a countdown now. What are some of the biggest lies out there around food and ag that we are always hearing or facing as you guys have talked about articles lately?
So I feel like I'm going to go broader, and then I'll let Natalie see if she has something more like specific. But I think one of the biggest lies is people think things are black and white in ag. Like it's either right or wrong. You're either, sustainable or you're not. You're either whatever you want to say, like, regen, not regen. And Natalie and I always talk about like a lot of ag is a spectrum. There's very nuanced conversation. There isn't a lot of times a right or a wrong. It's very like there's more to the story usually than gets put out in the headlines. And that's what we see. I feel like that's probably like the common thread among a lot of the articles we cover is, okay, maybe that headline makes sense, but did you consider these 45 other things that went into why that is the way it is?
I think what I'll add, and maybe it's a little bit big picture too, but I feel like the thing we're working against right now in the industry is actually labels. And that could be maybe actually labels on the food product that are, again, started maybe with good intentions, but are just confusing the crap out of consumers. or maybe even labeling operations, like Tara mentioned a little bit, like we're trying to put people in like just a traditional conventional box or just a regenerative box, and keeping it really nice and clean, and all the labels, are very specific like that. And I think it's doing and going to do a lot of harm to the industry. And I think we really need to keep like our nose on that, and start kind of addressing both food labels and being really on the offense for that, as well as trying to label operations.
Right, like
So-
Canadian beef processed in the U.S.
I was going to say country of origin labeling. They took away. NCBA was a big proponent of that. Is there a what do you think is driving the labels from farm raised or non-GMO, or this is et cetera, et cetera?
I mean, I think that labels are complicated. I feel like it's one of those things, like Natalie always jokes, you can't live with them and you can't live without them. Like, if you don't put on your milk that you're gluten-free, there is people who will think you have gluten, sometimes the labels, that seem so stupid, but like consumers are looking for them. So I think it's like twofold. Consumers do have questions about their food and want to know things. And so that, like, the idea behind labels is good. But then there's obviously a lot of labels that like don't mean anything, or they mean something that people think they mean something that they don't. And then it's like all that nuanced conversation. And so, and at the end of the day, I think you're trying to market your product. So if you can put a label you think consumers will look for and grab, you're going to. Like, and I can't blame food companies for that, but we've also just got to the point that labels don't mean anything.
Well, Bud Light just proved that, because they put a label on something and then it went one way. And I just read an article yesterday that it went the other way. That now,
what do you believe?
That now gay bars in LGBTQ friendly bars, but that's the way they termed it in the article, in Chicago, are now banning any Anheuser-Busch product because of the way they handled the output of it. Like, I'm curious, did marketers say, this is, daily fresh eggs, or, something just for the marketing to say that it's better, and then now it's having a kickback effect, just like it maybe did on Budweiser?
Yeah.
Somebody thought it was a good idea and then shot back.
So go ahead.
I was just going to say, yeah, I definitely think so. I think they started out with really good intentions, and now they are just adding way more confusion and mess for maybe even, like you said, like a Bush, like that end of the spectrum, and even just for the farmer end too. And obviously for the consumers. Like, I don't know if there's really, well, you always could say follow the money. There's someone benefiting from it. But I think it's just not where they started. We've diverted a really long way with the labels.
Yeah. No, I agree. The next question that Corey had for us is around the podcast recording. How hard is it to record hundreds of miles, thousands? Are you 1,000 miles apart?
I think we're 1,400 miles apart. I don't know. You drove it, Natalie.
We're 10 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
What you're doing 140 mile an hour? We're in business.
No. I think you're right. I think we're like 1,000 miles apart. I would forget.
So what's that like?
I think that's like the positives of like modern technology and the world we live in. Honestly, Natalie and I see each other a lot. I would probably shock people. We talked about this on the podcast actually last week, of how often we see each other, even though we're really far apart. We see each other usually like once a month. Lately, for some reason, we just haven't had as many functions together, and it's been longer. But we record every single week, and we record just like you guys do over, online streaming service, basically. And I don't know. My husband always jokes that Natalie and I are the only people that could run a company with voice memo texts. We send a lot of voice memo texts. Actually, I feel like any given day we have 3 streams of communication, like Instagram DM, we're sending emails, we're texting, we're like voicemails. Like, it's kind of crazy to see our back end, but it really works. I don't feel like it works well for us.
Yeah. It's surprisingly easy, I think, for what people would assume running a business multiple states away is.
We just get so much value out of sitting across the table from each other. If you were watching us, we've clearly pointed at each other or written things down or given a nod or a wink. Almost 4 years of doing this, I know when I don't step over Dave. I know when he's going to have a follow-up or whichever it is. And I think that was the part of Corey's question is, if we all did this from our homes,
it'd be tougher.
We'd have to edit a lot more.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Tara said, I mean, we had a friendship before we had a business, and so I think that really helps. And I don't know what it is, but I mean, we guest on a lot of podcasts, and they'll always say, "Wow, you guys go back and forth so well. You can tell you guys have done this before." And so I think it's just been always like really natural and easy for us. I don't know. I guess we're getting off the hook easy, maybe.
I do think it's practice too. Like I think if we probably went back and listened to our first episodes, we would like die a little on the inside. And there is some editing, but I do think we read each other's like being able to see each other on video, even though we're far apart, helps be able to like view each other's visual cues. And I don't know how many times we've been like recording a podcast as a guest, and like Natalie will send me a text. So like I have my phone on me that sometimes we'll be communicating with each other like while we're on as something like, hey, we need to go for another 10 minutes with this guest, or we need to cut them off here. Exactly what you guys are doing right now, but we're just doing it through our phones. And so I think we've just gotten creative with how we interact with that.
Is there internet in Nebraska to be able to support this?
Barely. I'm hanging on by a thread, Dave.
I don't even know.
You know how you guys said find a friend that has 4K video? I laughed when you said that because, oh my goodness, Natalie's uploading time length sometimes kills me a little bit.
So you guys will find out when we turn off this conversation. I will be uploading for I know to mute my mic, mute my camera, and it uploads for probably another 20 or 30 minutes.
She's got it figured out.
Yeah.
She knows exactly how to go. That's what Corey had for questions. Was your question about internet?
No, it wasn't.
I was going to say, really?
I got sidetracked, but it made me think of another one. I'm thinking of content creation. So we get to go to different shows, farm progress shows, etc. And sometimes we get to create content for folks. And I think it'd be so interesting. Dairy cattle and beef cattle, possibly. And you ever see that show Wife Swap? And what it would look like to live in each other's world for like a week, and like you guys swap and record it. Like YouTube, like would crash watching.
That would actually be hilarious because the first dairy farm I ever stepped foot on was Tara's, and so I would be a fish out of water trying to survive down in the New Mexico heat with the chilies. Like my mouth would be on fire. I would be dealing with cattle that are tall and skinny and look funny. Like I would just not be knowing what to do.
Natalie and I disagree on what cattle are attractive. The first time I saw a Hereford in real life, I was like, it's so short and fat. And she was like, no, it's not. It's beautiful. But no, it is funny you mentioned that. I have learned more about, I mean, obviously like beef is on a dairy farm our second income, but it obviously looks very different than a cattle ranch. I think it's something both our husbands and us laugh about, that we never thought we would know so much about like dairy and beef and vice versa. And so it is funny we tease each other. We have a group text message between us and our husbands, and it's kind of funny to be in there and the teasing that goes back and forth between dairy and beef. And as Natalie said, I think I would get thrown into Nebraska and freeze to death in the cold and not know how to saddle a horse. So it would be ultimately problematic for both of us.
That's actually true. I would for sure last longer than Tara, so I will be the one.
That is so true.
No, I just wouldn't go outside. Like we're in the middle of the winter where our husbands were talking about grilling, and I was like, "You grill in December in Nebraska?" And he was like, "Tara, we do go outside even when there's snow on the ground." I was like, "I would not. I would just lock myself indoors."
That's pretty good.
That's good.
All right, so ladies, what's next? What's the next steps for you guys, and what can our listeners help you with?
Yeah, so the podcast is really our main focus for 2023. And then we're also building kind of behind the scenes a docu-series we would love to pair with the podcast, where it's funny enough, you mentioned like us going out to the chili farm and documenting that. That's we'd love to help people discover ag, which is why we titled our podcast that. That's what our docu-series is as well. And so we have filmed a pilot episode for that, and we're working on a second episode this summer. And our dream would for that to be picked up, and we could run a show and a podcast together parallel to each other.
Yeah, so if there's a Netflix producer out there, find us. You said, what can our listeners do? If you have any contacts out there for streaming services. No, but it is something we're really excited about, exactly like what you said. Like, I wish I knew how chilies were harvested. We went out to a cotton farm and learned all about. We went to a cotton gin to film for our pilot, and it was incredible to see a piece of agriculture you never get to see and ask, all the questions you have when you are learning about a new thing in ag that I think we all have, whether you're in ag or not. You have so many questions. And so we loved being able to kind of ask those and then bring that content out to our listeners.
Cool.
Sounds eerily familiar.
Yeah, absolutely. Very familiar. Dave, that's all I got for questions. You want to ask them to pay off one? Wrap this up?
Sure. So on our podcast, every year we ask a different question to every guest and then kind of compile them at the end of the year. And we're Farm for Profit, so normally about being profitable, but you can go any direction with this question. And so some of the past questions we've had are like, what do the most successful people have in common? But the question you guys get, and you think about it, is knowing what you know now, what advice would you give yourself at 18?
So listeners, while they're thinking about that, don't forget to run over to our YouTube channel. Take a look at this episode as we recorded it here virtually. Make sure you hit subscribe. We greatly appreciate that. And share this with your friends. Again, too, if there's guests that you want us to have on, farm4profitllc@gmail.com. We appreciate you and all the input you've given us so far because it's fun putting episodes out that you want to hear and see. So thanks for doing that. So what do you think, ladies?
I would tell myself that your gut is not wrong. Always listen to your gut. It will not lead you astray.
And mine is going to be a little different. I feel like mine would be like to not get stuck in your ways because at 18, the platform that I now make a majority of my money on did not even exist. So if I had told myself at 18 I was going to do this and be this and, stick with this the rest of my life, I obviously wouldn't have gone down this path. So see what life opens up for you, say yes to things and see then what, if your passion is drawn to those things and be adaptable because, things are changing very rapidly in this world. And if you can't adapt to them and open yourself up to new ideas, a new way of doing things, I think you're going to get left in the past very quickly.
Wow.
Good stuff.
Those are both really good answers, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Trust
I
your
should have
gut.
said
Eat
I
green
should have said
chili.
intuition. I want to change gut to intuition. Just make it a little more, like high
Yeah, I
level.
went green chili route with the gut. Yeah.
Trust your gut. Spicy.
Trust your gut. Don't eat green chili. That's not.
Don't eat green chili.
No,
Stay with your
Perfect.
Montana roots, your palate roots.
That's exactly.
Loaded up.
So go to Discover Ag on anywhere you download podcasts, and you can have a listen.
That's right. Instagram. Give these gals because your handles are your names, correct?
Yep. You can find me at Natalie Kovarik and then Tara's at Tara Vanderdussen.
And then at @discoverag_ on Instagram, or like you said, Discover Ag on anywhere you listen to podcasts.
Awesome. This has been a pleasure, ladies, and I can't wait to connect in person, set the equipment up so we can give our listeners some extreme value on what they can do telling the story about their operations. So thank you so much. We really appreciate this. And
Thanks for having us.
yeah, we're going to let you guys go. Have yourselves a great afternoon. And listeners, crack a bush light. You deserve it.